Luigi Mangione was back in court this morning for a pre-trial hearing. Mangione is accused of shooting and killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last year. The judge overseeing his case dismissed the two most serious state charges, but he is also facing federal charges. So let's go live now to CBS News national correspondent Jerika Duncan outside the Manhattan courthouse. Jerika, thank you so much for joining us today. You were inside the courtroom. Can you describe what you saw and heard this time compared to what we saw last time with Mangione?
That's right. So court was supposed to start at 9 o'clock this morning Eastern time, and everyone wanted to make sure we got our seats so we could get a clear shot of Mangione as he walked in. But it was about 25 minutes that we were sitting there. There was a huge police presence. And about 9:28 in walks Luigi Mangione. He's dressed in like a tan jumpsuit. He's sort of looking around at different people, but he kept his head high. He raised his eyebrows a little bit, but he seemed very confident, knowing that every little thing that he was doing was absolutely going to be analyzed. There were people in that courtroom who support Luigi Mangione. Many of them were outside this morning with different signs saying "Free Luigi." There was a bus that was going by, a van with different images of people and messages saying that essentially they had been screwed by the healthcare system and supported Luigi Mangione, which is what this case is really about. You have people that are torn because they feel what he did was absolutely, or alleged to have done, is absolutely wrong, and a person was lost behind this, a father of two, a CEO. And then you have people that are saying, no, this needed to happen, not my words, but people that I've spoken to, because it's bringing attention to an issue in reference to health care. But inside the courtroom, as you mentioned at the top of this report, those two big charges were dropped, murder in the first and second degree as it related to terrorism. And that was a charge that was brought by New York State after 9/11. And when you look at the 12 pages of that decision that the judge made, it's clear that he's saying that the prosecutors did not get to the level needed to move those charges forward because of coercion, because of intimidation, and those factors maybe not being there when it comes to the statute here in New York State. But he is still, Luigi Mangione is still facing a very significant charge of second-degree murder, along with other charges. And keep in mind, he's facing a federal case, which means the death penalty is still on the table. He has yet to go to trial for either of those. There are more motions that were filed today, so there will be a hearing on December 1st as it pertains to the New York State case. But again, he's also expected to face charges at the federal level. He's expected in court for that in December as well.
All right, Jerika Duncan in Manhattan for us today. Thank you so much for your time.
Free Luigi. Gus T, Renegade, worthless Negro from Virginia, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the global system of white supremacy. Today's date, Tuesday, September 16, 2025. So I have been told. Not scheduled impromptu broadcast. Didn't say anything about it yesterday because I didn't have it in my brain computer that we were going to do this program. But I was motivated after the broadcast yesterday. Might make sense this program. It'll make more sense if you've already heard yesterday's broadcast. So you can decide, I guess, if you're like a first time ever listener, it might be better to pause and go listen to the broadcast from yesterday, Monday, September 15, then hear this program, as opposed to listening to this and what are they talking about? What happened yesterday? But take your pick. Either way. So yesterday we had racist suspect Dr. Tyler B. Davis as a guest on the program. White man. We discussed his book, God of the Whirlwind. It's about racism, white supremacy in Waco, Texas, and a lot of it specifically focused around the lynching of Jesse Washington in May of 1916 in Waco, and then other events subsequently, but that's kind of the main focal point this lynching of Jesse Washington, privileged black male. So we talked about the book, racism in Waco, what have you, him being a white man. We talk about all that. This program also featured black male, Reverend George E. Oliver. He's one of, because this book is like an anthology, an oral history collection based on interviews that this white man did with, I think, about 8 different black people, males and females, throughout the Waco area. Over, I think a lot of them happened in 2022. Most of them in person, some via Zoom, but interviews, and then he transcribed and put them all together. So, and Reverend Oliver is one of the participants. He has a whole chapter talking about his experiences with racism in Waco. Before we get to that, just quickly, the audio that we started with, trying to sneak in so I don't have to play everything, for the compensatory call-in this Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. But that audio, Luigi Mangione, that was just hours ago. They dropped the terrorism charges, which was kind of a head scratcher for me, but I'm no scholar of jurisprudence and might be indicted on terrorism charges myself. I mean, you plot out and do all this scheming, hiding, sneaking around New York City and evading authorities and all the rest of it to go and kill this insurance dude who you say has wronged us. That's not terrorism? Really? I mean, you cold blood shoot him in the back and all that, and all this about the insurance industry ain't done the right thing, and that's not terrorism? Really? That man, I'm gonna tell you, if Leroy, Devontae, black identity extremist, had done all that, had some cool slogans that they down with the man or whatever, ain't no way in the world they would have dropped no terrorism charges, and you wouldn't have seen all that same thing that we heard with Mary Kay Letourneau. It wouldn't have been no white groupies spinning. I think Luigi Mangione, I think he got more groupies than Mary Kay, which is, I mean, wow, she's blonde. But they got white groupies mostly. I did see one black man. I mean, singular. I saw one person that looked like they would be classified as black, and that might have been hardcore racial showcasing, because they made sure to get this individual right in the center of the frame. Everybody else on the screen looked very pale, classified as white. But all these groupies out cheering. They had some little white woman. She had her shirt on and "Free Luigi." Ain't no way. If this had been Anthony Broadwater, how many people gonna have it? Free Anthony. He didn't rape that white woman. Let him out of prison. Excuse me, I was about to say Sue Clebo. See the name? Alice Sebo. She done lied on Anthony. Let him on out of there. How many of them would have been piled up outside? Even if it had just been, Khalif Browder didn't steal that backpack. You turn him loose. We don't need no teens in prison, except that old Colt 45 down in Georgia shot up the school. But we don't need no little peoples in prison. Go on and let Khalif out. Free Khalif. They were in t-shirts. Free Khalif. Come on. He done cold-blooded murder somebody. Well, I identify with Luigi. Took off. You got people, they had camped out and everything. Took days off work and all of that. Come on. I'm saying, in fact, it could have been the exact same thing. I'm mad about the insurance industry, and they done messed us over. I got family members who needed medical attention, and they didn't do right by us, and ran. Matter of fact, hey, it's 20 years. If this had been some of Irie's family members mad because the insurance industry didn't do right by them after the flood, and they went and shot somebody, Allstate, Brian Thompson, insurance CEO, went, shot him. You didn't do right by us. A whole lot of black people down in the bayou in Mississippi, a whole lot of people, period, right? Even you'd had white people too, right? Mad. Insurance company didn't do right by us, man, and, got us in our old lame FEMA trailer and all the formaldehyde up in our nostrils, and, I got to gun down some of you. Going to pay for this. If I got enough bullets left, I'm going to go get some of the FEMA folks, too. Ain't no galaxy that I can imagine white people cheering and hooting and hollering and right on. Leroy got to be free. You shouldn't have done that. Y'all messed over everybody in New Orleans and ought to be shamed. This is a disgrace. Got Ray Nagin out there on the radio cursing and asking for help. Oh, what? And they're going to be at the trial the whole way through for the next year, what have you? Free Leroy. Free Leroy. Free Leroy. Those insurance goons, they got what they deserve. Free Leroy. Leroy should have shot 5-10 more of them. Free Leroy. Are you serious? Are you out of your cotton picking mind? I said that on purpose. Like, woo. Are you out of your cotton picking mind? Anyway, but that, I guess, ongoing. And I didn't realize that's the old Peyton Gendron, because this happened in New York State. Ooh-wee. He might also. Okay, you're not going to get state terrorism charges and all the rest of it, Luigi. I hope your groupies are in for the long haul, because, he could end up facing the death penalty on federal charges. I just wasn't thinking about that, but right, that's Peyton Gendron. State trial, life in prison. Federal charges pending, and you might get the death penalty. Now, be a groupie about that. You talk about martyr. If they end up giving him lethal injection, old Luigi, oh my lord, it'll be worse than Ted Bundy. Anyway, that reminded me, we were talking about Florida that came up, and the death penalty and children we were talking about Jeff Dahmer. Jeff Dahmer was suspected of killing a child in Florida. He didn't admit to it, and I said there might be a reason for that. They have the death penalty in Florida, and it's no statute of limitations. I said I wasn't sure. I have to check to see if, do they still have the death penalty? Would that have been a problem? Because I know they executed Ted Bundy. Yes, they do still have the death penalty. So, yes, that would have been a massive logical reason for Jeff Dahmer to say, oh, no, I didn't kill nobody in Florida. What you talking about? No. But that was from the book club. Did do my research there, but we'll keep an eye on what happens with the Luigi Mangione case. Like I said, or I posted, they had stickers and paraphernalia all over Seattle. This happened in New York City. We are literally like 3,000 miles from New York City. They have stickers, and I've seen them all throughout. I posted online, we with you, Luigi, free Luigi. My sick white brother, I'm with you. The health insurance company, they messed me over too. I've been thinking about getting me a ghost gun and putting a bullet in one of them too. Like, do what? Do what? White identity extremists? Ain't it got to be? Jeez. You should be on the FBI watch list at minimum just for putting stickers up like that. Did you go to Kinko's to print those up? Man, they should have made a phone call before they did your order. Right on, brother Luigi, and all your white groupie. That some people who have access, who are in New York, I would go and see, are there non-white people there? And then I would go talk to them. Why are you here? Ask them lots of questions. Do you think there's a system of white supremacy? If this wasn't Luigi, if this was Leroy and not Luigi, do you think all these white people would be out here like, right on, Leroy, freely? Get some other questions, whatever other questions. But man, go talk and see, count, and I mean literally count how many non-white people are present, and then go talk to them and let us hear what they say. Okay, let's see. The broadcast from yesterday, Catherine Massey Book Club, Fridays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And then Neutralizing Workplace Racism on Thursdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Now, our broadcast from Monday, yesterday, Dr. Tyler B. Davis, white man suspected racist. Now, again, we were talking about his book, God of the Whirlwind, Horror, Memory, and Story in Black Waco. Now, I was interested in this book because we had just talked about racism in Houston and doing our whole Texas thing. Shout to Devontae. They've been talking about racism daily in Texas for a variety of reasons. And even, I guess, Carmelo Anthony in the background, that case coming up soon, the young black fellow who is accused of stabbing and killing that white teen in the school kerfuffle athletic competition. But we talk about Texas a lot, recently and long term. But I wanted to go ahead and get him on the program because this was connected to the book we just discussed with John A. Heyman, White Man Suspected Racist, Black Soldiers, White Law, about the 1917 racial mutiny, so-called, in Houston, Texas. The lynching of Jesse Washington is in 1916, and Mr. Heyman includes that lynching in his book, Relevant Context. So I thought, hey, we should get him on the program. And these are both new books. Both of these books were published this year. So again, we have done our job. Read a nonfiction book that was published during the current year. That is the least we can do to activate our tiny Negro brains as victims of racism. Racists do not want us reading serious material. They do not want us being counter-racist literary scholars using our brain computer for more than entertainment. That's not what racists want to see. We should do more of it. You got connections to Texas. I say study local history. Man, the C.O.W.S has hooked you up this year. There you go. Already got your reading for this year. If you need to learn local history for Texas, we set you up nice. So we do the program yesterday, Dr. Tyler, Racist Suspect. Now, I'm reading this book about the lynching of Jesse Washington, privileged black male. We talked about this lynching before. I've read about this lynching before. And like I said, this book is basically a collection of oral histories of different black people talking about, what they were told or what they were not told in many instances about the lynching of Jesse Washington, and or them not being told about racism in general, which I think is important for so many reasons. I even have some of the black victims in the book stating explicitly that we didn't understand racism. Duh. It's just rare in my experience to hear a black person, non-white person, state it that explicitly, that precisely, and in my view, that accurately, that, hey, we don't understand racism. Obviously, we wouldn't be in this position. We would have made different decisions, made better choices, maybe solved this problem if we had a better understanding of racism. We don't, myself included. Gus T, Renegade, I've been saying that for the whole 16 years that we've been on the air. Now, so the program for yesterday, I invite Dr. Davis, white man, to come on. He says, sure. He includes in the email, he says, I'll see if I can get some of the oral, what shall I say, some of the black people who shared their oral stories. Beg pardon, got something caught in my throat. But I'll see if I can nab some of the black people who shared their experiences in the book, see if they'd be willing to come and chat it up. No problem, sure. Even though we've had a white guest only policy for years. I say for years. Do not waste my time, clog up my email, waste airtime talking about I have a Negro that you should talk to, non-white person that you should talk to. Hope you get this non-white person on the program. I'm not interested in talking to them. This broadcast is about talking to individuals classified as white, studying them. What does it mean to be white? In fact, improving our ability to question individuals classified as white, taking advantage of that opportunity. That is a massive priority for this broadcast. Context of White Supremacy, not arguing and squabbling. Did you see what Dr. Umar did? I don't care about none of that. At minimum, it should be clear 16 years in, there is a massive difference between Gus T and many of the other people that do their platforms. Not something's better or worse about Gus T, but different. He is not about talking to non-white people. It is white guests only for a reason. I break that rule. Oh, we'll have Miss Sade C. Robinson on the program if I cannot act a fool and bother her. I break that rule. Let's see what she has to say. But other than that, I'm not interested in talking to non-white people. Yesterday, great illustration of why. Now, interestingly, we get Dr. Davis, white man, racist suspect. Bring him on the program first. He was the invited guest. I reached out to him. And he immediately says, we got Reverend Oliver here. As soon as he get on the program, let's see what he says. That is a standard tactic when you talk to white people. If it's like a group setting and there are white, non-white people present, they will immediately go into white idiot, stupid white person, stupid white man, stupid white woman role. I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing about racism. Oh, I'm just the biggest moron in the world. You know, Leroy here, he really is the PhD expert on racism. Now, that alone should stand out. Really. Even black people who never think about racism, like, wait a minute. Now, they normally don't say Leroy and Lakeisha are intelligent about anything except maybe cooking chitlins and doing cornrows. Maybe. That's about it. Once you get beyond that, like Leroy and intelligent, that don't even belong in the same sentence. Lakeisha and intelligence, that don't even belong in the same sentence. That right there should make you like, wait. In addition to the fact that we are still victims. Now, how smart can Leroy be as a victim? He's got a jumpsuit on. How smart do you think he is about anything? Just saying. Anyway, but he's trying to defer. We should get Reverend Oliver. We should get Reverend Oliver on here. Get other black people on here. All of that is suspicious, and I've seen that many, many times where white people will try to defer. No way. We're having a conversation, or that's why we have a white guest only policy. It should be white people answering questions, explaining things. And I had lots of questions that were specifically for this white man, and I really did not care what any non-white person, what their view is, what you think. I'm not interested in their response. What is your definition of racism? No, I don't care. What does this white person think? What is your view? Because white people are in charge. The white man agreed. We're in a system of white supremacy racism. Yep. Y'all are in charge. So what do you think? That is most important. Not squabbling with other non-white people who are generally very confused, very ignorant about racism. Now, we get through talking to Dr. Davis. I think we talked to him for about an hour or so before I got to Reverend Oliver, which was very deliberate. I was going to get through the bulk of my questions and maybe should have got through every single question before I got to Reverend Oliver. If we have that happen again, I'll make sure to do that. Also, I can give a shout out to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. It was she, way back the first year that we came back on the air in 2009, where she said, oh no, I don't do panels, because I was trying to see if I could get her as a guest on the program with Tim Wise and Mr. Fuller at some point, like both together. And she said, oh no, I don't do panels. And she said the reasoning you get on panels, she had different reasoning for Tim Wise, which I've explained before, but be that as it may. But panels with other non-white people, group presentations type things, she said you get like group discussions and we try to one up one another and squabbling and all of that. Everybody certainly can have their own views. Everyone, non-white people don't have to agree with my views on white supremacy, racism, but just give everybody their own platform to say whatever they want to say, whatever their views are, and that way it's not a, well, I don't agree with what Dr. Welsing said, that type of thing. It's like, okay, that makes sense. And some of that, even from yesterday, if it's a white person and a non-white person, then that gives, in my view, entirely different dynamics, and a lot of those dynamics were on display yesterday. I'll talk about that specifically as well. Now, and I'll leave in Mr. Neely Fuller Jr.'s concept, compensatory conversation control. When you go into conversations about racism in a group setting, it's going to be white people and non-white people present. I focus my attention on the white people. I've noticed a lot of times in these settings, white people can slink out of the way like an old criminal and somehow it'll end up just being the non-white people arguing and squabbling amongst ourselves. And sometimes the white person gets to even come in and be peacemaker about all of this. I really work against that dynamic. Sometimes if I ask a question, I have to specify that this question is for someone white. And it'll be, man, I have seen in public, it'll be someone dark, the complexion of Lupita Nyong'o, the complexion of Chadwick Boseman, who will be the first one to leap up. I got the answer. Whoa, wait a minute, Leroy. Are you classified as white? I need someone classified as white to answer this question. And oh man, Leroy will get hot and be fuming. Oh, you gonna let me talk, Leroy? I have seen that bunches of times. Compensatory conversation control in group settings about white supremacy racism is very important. And even what I say all the time, or in fact, what Neely Fuller Jr. said all the time, minimizing conflict with non-white people. I say, hey, if you say you are smart, I understand something about racism, well, that is going to be a top priority when you are in contact with other non-white people. Minimizing conflict. I'm not here to squabble with this non-white person. It doesn't even matter if this non-white person has different views than mine. Victims guaranteed qualified. That makes no difference at all. We aren't supposed to be having conflict. I'm going to do my part to make sure that I can minimize that. Compensatory conversation control. That's something that I keep in mind as well. And particularly if we're in company with white people, and one of the ways that I do that is I'm not wasting my time up here chatting with Leroy and what did you say? And I can't believe you think that way, Leroy. No. Whatever. What did that white person say? Have they said anything at all? Are they just sitting over here observing? Cool. Taking note? Ask them some questions. Let's focus some of our attention on them. We can squabble with each other later. If maybe we can find something better to do with our time than squabble with each other. How about that? Anyway, so muted Mr. Oliver, or really just focused on Dr. Davis, the white man, for about the first hour, 10 minutes of the broadcast. Easily could have been 2 hours. Easily. Pause there to include Reverend Oliver. Black male, privileged. Now, I will even say I'm very cautious about, generally speaking, talking to black people who are very much into really any sort of religious doctrine. I am a heathen. Worthless Negro from Virginia and have very poor people skills. It's the same thing they say about my sick white brother at the courthouse, that Gus T is unprofessional and he does not know how to talk to people. That is almost Bible at this point. Everyone, white people and victims of racism, universally say that all over the universe. Now, that said, with non-white people, I generally avoid talking to non-white people. We do have a white guest only policy. When I do have contact with non-white people, I generally try to minimize conflict. So I'm not name calling, grousing with them, points that I don't agree with, and all the rest of it. When I got to Reverend Oliver to include him in the discussion, I had very specific points that I wanted to speak to him about. It's included in the book, his efforts to get an MLK holiday established at Baylor University down in Waco, Texas. His efforts, he talks about in the book, the episode with his uncle, where his uncle could have been killed by racists. His general experience with racism, how he came to understand what happened with Jesse Washington, general views on racism in Waco. There were specific points that I wanted to add. And how did he suspect Dr. Davis of being a racist? But he kind of explained all that when he first joined us, and I'll make sure I get in. I do respect, he said, I went to investigate. Apparently he had some level of suspicion. I went to investigate this guy. Where did he go to school? What teachers and scholars did he study under? Contact some of them. What do you think about this white guy before I hopped into his project? Hey, bravo. I think many victims of racism would have done a lot less, would have been a lot less suspicious, would have done a lot less, or would have had a lot less diligence about, let me at least inquire. Let me ask a few questions. Do some poking around, as they say. That said, it's been my experience, generally speaking, it does not take very much to drain the suspicion away from victims of racism, non-white people, suspicions of individuals classified as white. It has been my experience that, hey, within 5 minutes sometimes, certainly within 5 days, we might start out saying, I don't know who this whitey is. By the end of the hey, come on in, Ted. This my favorite white man right here. Boy, come on, we have cornbread and talk and everything. He working on a book. I have seen that over and over and over. Didn't we get Rebecca Skloot, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks? We've heard this over and over and over. I said on the broadcast yesterday, like, white people can get all kinds of credentials from black people all over the world. I mean, they're classified as white. Not that they need any credentials from black people, but I mean, generally speaking, if they needed, they could get any black person to co-sign. This is a cool white dude. This is a cool white woman. Like, yeah, not all white people is this race. Just that right there alone. The fact that about 99% of the non-white people on the planet, according to my conclusion, and it might be higher, 99% of us, we think not all white people are racist. So once you start there, it's very easy. This is one of the non-white people who is not racist. Teddy is cool. Dr. Davis is cool. Jane Elliott is cool. Tim Wise is cool. John Brown is cool. Not all white people is racist. Right on, VGQ. Moving forward. So, Reverend Oliver, when he comes on, that's one of the first things. He volunteers that I was suspicious, and he goes through his process of how his suspicions came tumbling down. Like the walls of Jericho, ain't that what they say? Came tumbling down, and so now he has a white friend. That right there. I guess maybe we'll get a sound effect for that at some point, but like, man, I don't have Negro friends. I don't have counter-racist friends. White friend? Whew, man, the concept, Fuller talked about that concept specifically. White friend. Now, he didn't say white friend. He just said, now, we're friends. But, I mean, whatever. Whatever. My white friend. Hold that. My white friend. Now, Reverend Oliver, when he came on, he said, I was ready to jump down your throat. There were so many points that I was ready to talk, and I just have to say flat, I'm not interested in talking to black people. I do not care what black people think about racism, and that's just flat. There might be exceptions to the rule, but I mean, you can check my record. Isn't that what he told us? You can check my record. Now, how often do you hear me say, I'm really excited to hear what Leroy has to say about racism? How often do you hear me say, I'm really excited to hear what Lakeisha, what her views on racism are? And in fact, really check my record. I said, I break the rule. White guests only. I just gave you the illustration. Sade C. Robinson's mother, Miss Sheena Scarborough. I broke the rule. Let's have her as a guest on the program. I did not invite Miss Scarborough as a guest on the program. You're an expert on racism. Tell me about your views on the system of white supremacy racism. Not at all. You can go back and listen. It's not that far in the archive. You can go back and listen did I even ask her about a definition of racism? I learned a lot from Miss Scarborough, even a lot about racism in Milwaukee and Wisconsin at large, but I did not want to talk to her because I thought she is an expert on white supremacy racism. Not at all. And I don't like speaking for other people, but I don't think she would even say, yes, Sheena Scarborough is an expert on white supremacy racism. Y'all can ask her directly, visit the foundation, but yeah, that's just, I've never heard her say that. And the time I spoke with her, I never heard her say that. Never. The experts are classified as white, but I'm not interested. I've heard that before, I've encountered that before, where I've been talking to a white person and a victim of racism, non-white person, has been chomping at the bit. I don't agree with what Gus said. I don't agree with how you've been talking to this white person. And ooh, I'm ready to get on you. And he said explicitly, I was ready to jump down your throat. That to me sounds like kind of a violent metaphor, which is kind of what I expect from non-white people. That's conflict with non-white people, which is a big part of why white guests only. I'm not interested in squabbling with black people. And that's what it's going to be almost immediately. Got to get to where I don't agree with you. I don't agree, Brother Gus. I don't agree with what you talking about there, Brother Gus, at all. You don't know what you talking about there. You need to do your research, Brother Gus. You need to do your research. I'm not interested in any of that. From Leroy in the prison. We're all sitting in the prison. I don't know what I'm talking about. You've all said that universally. Fine. I'm not going to try and convince you of otherwise, though. I'm going to go talk to these white people. Don't you come hop in my conversation with this white man, white woman, and wait a minute, that Brother Gus, whoa, 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 whoa. Go have your own conversation. You can get your own podcast, do all of that. Don't come hopping over here. And it's lots of that where victims of racism will come. I didn't even ask to talk to you, man. I don't agree with what you talk. I'm ready to jump in. You are on someone else's public platform. That's what I said, like the anti-blackness. It's hard for me to imagine. I listen to non-white people all the time. I listen to non-white people talk about racism all the time, publicly. It's my job. We've been here for 16 years. I do not hear non-white people get aggressive. And I mean, this is the first time we've talked ever. I didn't talk to Reverend Oliver in advance. This is the first time we talked ever. And within 5 minutes, I'm ready to jump down your throat. You don't know if I'm a gangster. You don't know if I'm the type of person you ready to jump down my MF and what MFer? Who are you talking to, MFer? That might be the type of black dude that I am. Would you talk to a white person like that? And I'm going to answer definitively. No, and this is a reverend. Now, I'm not saying you're supposed to be Dr. King and what have you, but I mean, dang, is the reverend supposed to be jumping down people's throat? That's what I'm saying. Like, at any point, have you been ready to jump down Dr. Davis's throat? The white people at Baylor that didn't want to recognize Dr. King's holiday, were you ready to jump down their throat? Within 5 minutes of meeting them. The white people in Baylor who celebrate the lynching of Jesse Washington. The nigger deserved it. He killed a white woman. He should have been lynched. I got his scrotum in my attic. Cousin got his knuckles in her basement. You go jump down their throat? I got a long list. We go on, and you're going to come jump down Leroy's throat about how he spoke to a white man. I'm in Seattle for a reason. Washington State for a listener said this like over a decade ago. Literally. She said, you know, if you lived in an area where you were in contact with more black people, cows might not exist. Might be better that you're in an area where you are not around black people. Yup. Not that I don't have white friends in Seattle, but no, I do not have to come in contact with black people and all that anti-blackness and within 5 minutes, conflict. Now, specific even to the nature of the conflict. I've noted that so frequently that when non-white people speak, I have to pinpoint out, you don't know what you're talking about as it relates to racism. I just say point blank, like 99.9% of the non-white people that I hear, including C.O.W.S listeners, I've concluded you don't know what you're talking about as it relates to racism. Gus is included in that too, and it's obvious because we're still victims of racism. I do not make it my business every time I talk to a non-white person on the air or no, oh, brother, you wrong there, brother. You don't know what you're talking about there. You know, no. We do a lot of that, calling it correcting our brothers and sisters. I read the portion from the book yesterday where one of the victims said flagrantly, we did not understand racism. It seemed from Reverend Oliver's correspondence, what he said on the program, he had a problem with that. That's what she said. I don't have a problem with it because I've heard that before. That's not anything unique, special. The only thing unique about it is it's normally not said so precisely, but I've heard numbers of black people way down the Mr. Fuller even. We thought we understood. We did not. We did not. I even heard that from the Black Panthers. We thought we understood. We did not. I've heard that over and over and over and over. Like I said, the only thing unique about it is it's normally not we thought we understood race. It'll be something else. We thought we understood white people, which also, that's a big one. But yet we thought we understood. We didn't. Thank you for being honest, and all that false nonsense bravado that many people classified as black often have about, I know whitey, I know about the white man, I know about racism. Like I've heard that so frequently from non-white people who are clearly ignorant about racism. Gus T is ignorant too. I don't go around here bragging, poking my chest out about, I'm an expert on racism, I'm superstar informed about racism. I don't do that. I stand by my work, what we've done for 16 years, but hey, I'm still on the grind, still learning. I done learned and know everything about racism and sitting in my cell as an expert PhD counter-racist scholar. I don't do that. Stand by my record on that too. Worthless Negro from Virginia. I think that's what I say, not expert on racism. I think I said it today, in fact. Anyhoodles, but that's one. Reverend Oliver, disgruntled. I read the book, right? I'm prepared to do my research. That's what she said. We thought we understood racism, and we did not. And that's still true today. He also, Reverend Oliver, had a problem with me raising a point. Hey, this white man in this book, I suspect, practiced racism in a number of different ways. One of them, he talks about they had over 4,000 lynchings of black people in this part of the world. He highlights precisely that 130 of these lynchings were black females. You're telling us the other thousands were black males, but you say nothing about that? You mentioned gendered violence in the book, but you don't connect it for listeners. This might be their first time hearing about this information, and you don't connect it that, oh, the lynchings should be understood as gendered and sexual violence against black males. You can't even include a sentence to spell that out. Yes, I think that's an act of racism. Yes, I think that's Black Misandry. And yes, that's very common where we do not specify, hey, these lynchings, this is anti-black male violence. Yeah, Leo Frank, get out of here. Yeah, some white people got lynched, get out of here. I'm not even minimizing the black females who were lynched. Hey, I can stand by my record. We've done whole programs about black females being victims of lynchings, the Lynch Quilt Project. Yes, in our archives. All of that said, thousands of these lynchings are black males. That should be specified precisely. If that's what the evidence shows, well then state that. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, counter-racist scientist, been telling us for years. White genetic annihilation, been telling us for decades. White genetic annihilation, system of white supremacy racism, is specifically targeted on black males, black people in total, but specifically that violence is targeted on black males. She said that. And I've heard it. People get upset for her. You minimizing black females. Who said that? Just looking at the evidence and what they do. How is pointing that out sexist, misogynistic, patriarchal, incorrect in any way if it's true? Is this violence targeted on black males? 4,000 plus lynchings, and you put the specific number 130 of them are black females. How many of them were white people? Leo Frank, let's not forget the Italian Americans. Let's not forget them. Did they get any dogs get lynched in there? Did they get any queer people in there? Did they get any disabled people in there? When we get to it at the end of the day, so we still got thousands of Negro males lynched, and we still not talking about this as anti-black male racist violence. This is your gendered and sexual violence targeting black males. I said yesterday, it's common. I'm calling this out as racism and Black Misandry because this is very common where lynchings will be talked about, and it's not framed as this is anti-black male violence specifically. It happens all the time. Now, I mentioned on the program one of the white people recognize as one of the definitive works on lynchings in this part of the world without sanctuary. James Allen, white man, and I said that they have a whole exhibit attached to this book. It goes to different museums and such. It was at the King Center in Atlanta. I was able to see it there. It's, impactful. But so this is what the synopsis for the book Without Sanctuary, Lynching Photography in America, and they have a lynched dude on the front cover. But the synopsis says many people today, despite the evidence, don't want to believe that such atrocities happened in America not so very long ago. These photographs bear witness to an American Holocaust. Congressman John Lewis, the Tuskegee Institute, records the lynchings of 3,436 blacks, moved up to 4,000. This book was published about 20 years ago, so revised numbers, and the numbers will probably keep going up. Lynchings between 1882 and 1950. This is probably a small percentage of these murders, which were seldom reported and led to the creation of the NAACP in 1909, an organization dedicated to passing federal anti-lynching laws, which they failed at. Through all this terror and carnage, someone, many times a professional photographer, carried a camera and took pictures of the events. These lynching photographs were often made into postcards and sold as souvenirs to the crowds in attendance. These images are some of photography's most brutal surviving to this day, so that we may now look back on the terrorism unleashed on African Americans community and perhaps know our history and ourselves better. The almost 100 images reproduced here are a testament to the camera's ability to make us remember what we often choose to forget. Nothing there says anything about this is specifically targeted at black males. And I have this book. You can go through and read. It does not, when they set you up in the introduction and such, it is not, this should be understood as targeted black male violence terrorism. That's how this should be understood, because you're going to be overwhelmed with images of black dudes being lynched. Overwhelmed. And as they said, this is a small percentage. And I'm sure, as was Reverend Oliver, his point yesterday was he was ready to jump down my throat. You know it was more than 130 black females lynched. Yes. That would also mean it's got to be more than 4,000 black dudes lynched. Got to be. In fact, this whole book that we're talking about is Jesse Washington. You didn't have a story talking about Reverend Oliver. You didn't have a story about your aunt almost being lynched. You had a story about your uncle almost being lynched. In fact, you said your uncle was almost Emmett Till. That's not Jade Till. That's not Rachel Till. That's not Lakeisha Till. Emmett Till. That's what I said. The evidence is right in your face. Yesterday, now we're talking about the lynching of Jesse Washington. I said this is connected to black soldiers' white law. I said that book, you got 20 black dudes hung. I'm going to even revise and pull it down to 19. You got 19 black dudes hung, because I think that's the actual number. If I'm off by one, whatever. Negro rapist, whatever. So 19 black dudes hung in that book. And we talk about Jesse Washington in this book. So we got 20 times. That's just in 2 books. That's 20 times black dudes get hung, lynched, and specifically they got to station white guards next to the burial site to keep white predators from coming to get scraps of the dead Negro carcass. That's 20 different times. That's in writing. Now, how many times did I read where that happened to a black female, a white man, a white female, an Italian man, an Italian female, a queer person, a disabled person? How many times, Gus, have you read about that? I'm opening up my mouth wide so you can jump down my throat. So as long as that answer is 0, that should be pointed out. And if this is a continuum with all the nigger knocker police violence, because, hey, Norm Stamper, he didn't say, get your nigger knocker, and you go in that bar and you grab Lakeisha and drag her out here and we're going to rape her and beat her down with the nigger knocker. That's not what he said. To get the biggest, darkest Negro male with full black male privilege, you bring him out here and we're going to nigger knock him upside his head. That's what he said. So if that's on a continuum, maybe we better understand the system of white supremacy racism by being accurate and honest about this, as opposed to, I'm fixing to jump down your throat, Leroy. I'm just pointing out, in my view, the anti-blackness, Black Misandry, and even we really have a problem with a black person talking serious to another white person about racism, white supremacy. Like, it bothers a lot of non-white people. That is all throughout the book. Black people saying, "Ooh, don't you talk about Jesse Washington." White people gonna get us. And I'm not mocking this. It's true. I just want to be explicit. I'm not mocking black people saying don't talk about these lynchings, don't talk about racism. I told you, it was in the newspaper. This wasn't rumor and Negro idle chatter. It was in the newspaper in Louisiana. They lynched a privileged black male, not Lakeisha. They lynched a privileged black male. They didn't even get his name accurate. And they put it in the paper and said, look here, niggers, all of you. I don't want to hear nothing else about that nigger that we lynched. I don't even remember his name, but I don't want to hear nothing else about it. Leroy, Jamal, Devontae, whatever. And if we do hear anything more else about it, well, you'll have some more names to be sad about. Anything else y'all got to say? And that was that. You can go back talking about the church and what you think about the Bible verses and what y'all going to do Sunday's Bible meeting. Have extra choir rehearsal. You don't need to talk about racism. And that's all throughout the book. God in the whirlwind. Black people not talking about racism. Don't talk about Jesse Washington. I told you, they had black people who lived in Waco and went and met other people. And they said, hey, you from Waco? That's where they lynched the black people. And they said, oh, no, you don't do no crazy. Stop talking wild. They don't do nothing like that. He said, yeah, I saw it in the book. They got the picture. Look at that. They got Jesse Washington right there. That's Waco. Look at that. And got the black person sitting there like, what? That's, say Waco. Let me call my mama. Go back and say, wait a minute, did y'all, Jesse, what's his name again? Jesse Washington. Did y'all know that? Yes, we know. We can't talk about that. Oof. Come on, man. Come on. That's kind of both ways. You're not going to tell me if that's what it is. Let's point this out. It's anti-black male. Racist violence. That's what we're talking. This is the gendered sexual violence. You're not going to tell me that and then come back and tell me on the other end that black people are intelligent about racism. No, we're not. Not even close. We do not understand what it means to be white. We do not understand the system of white supremacy racism, what it is, how it works. People like Tyler Davis, white man, they lie to our faces when they say that. This white man wrote a whole book, went around and interviewed all these black people, probably more, went dug up all these books and such. admitted, yep, I'm informed about racism. You got all these black people. You got generations of black people that are illiterate. They can't even read the newspaper. Can't even spell Waco. Stand on my work. I say this is Black Misandry, and white people are deliberately lying about it. People like Tyler B. Davis, they lie in our face. You can convince someone like Reverend Oliver, this is a cool white man, I'm credentialed, I'm not racist, whatever. VGQ, Victims Guaranteed Qualified. Reverend Oliver doesn't think Tyler B. Davis is racist. He doesn't have to. But Dr. Tyler B. Davis can lie in our face, man. He said, I read and got in the footnotes the book Texas Tough, The Rise of America's Prison Empire, written by a white man, another expert on racism, Robert Perkinson. I stand by my work. We read this here book. We didn't read nothing. I read this book back in 2010, and Dr. Perkinson was a guest on the broadcast back in 2010. I got to go back here and double check myself to see when this book was actually published. Let's see. Oh, Gus T, I'm a stand on business, man. I'm a stand on business. So this book was published 2010. When was Dr. Perkinson a guest on the program? 2010. On business. Through and through. We had just got back on the air in 2009. Anyway, I mentioned this book yesterday when I was talking with Dr. Perkinson because I said, man, Black Misandry, that's what we're talking about. Yes, system of white supremacy, racism, but a key aspect of that is deliberately focusing violence and white terrorism on black males. Texas Tough. And he said, oh yeah, I read that book. It's in the footnotes. What does Texas Tough say? Prison discipline aimed to extract... Let me rewind a bit. Excuse. The numbers show that in Texas alone, imprisonment in the leasing era took a larger toll than the horror of Southern lynching, which has attracted much greater attention. According to research conducted by the Tuskegee Institute, 3,220 Americans were lynched in the South between 1880 and 1930. Over the 5.5 decades, the death total associated with convict leasing across the South probably exceeds 30,000. That's probably a low estimate, too. Death was the ultimate consequence of Southern justice, but some prisoners more dreaded survival. Young man, old man, men don't go to that place, end quote, exclaimed Charles Campbell. If fate ever says you must go, die first. Welcome death instead of worse than death, end quote. Prison punishments terrified convicts, especially those administered with the bat, a thick leather strap that became Texas's instrument of choice from the 1880s forward. Down here in Texas, we do not know how to manage without the strap, explained Huntsville. Reverend Oliver said he was right there at Huntsville. I should have asked him about this. Huntsville's warden to a national audience. We've been trying to reduce it as much as we could, but there are men that will not allow you to be kind to them. Asked by legislators whether or not Negroes can be ruled without the strap, a captain at the Borden farm replied, no, sir, I am positive they cannot. Much prison discipline aimed to extract labor, but as a set of leather-bound whipping ledgers stored at the state archives reveal, punishments were also inflicted to assert supremacy and debase prisoners. Violations of prison hierarchy, disobedience, impudence, and misconduct were more frequently punished than labor infractions like laziness. I have learned a hardened guard say he loved to see a damn convict suffer and gloried in their misery, wrote Andrew George. Carried out in the fields or back in the quarters at night, Whippings were perversely intimate affairs. Guards and convicts shared the noise, sweat, blood, and smells, though not the pain. For some bosses, lashing flesh took on twisted, even sadistic, homoerotic qualities. When officers wanted to convey special dissatisfaction, they stripped off a convict's clothes and let loose on the naked hide. Other prisoners were made to watch or help pin the naked victim to the ground. After one particularly bloody episode, a manager had other convicts parade before him to smell the bat. Footnote 172. This stagecraft of dominion and degradation did not stop with whipping. A prisoner on the Johnson farm claimed he was forced to eat his own droppings. On the Clemens farm, several convicts charged that Captain Grace punished sodomy by forcing suspects to engage in humiliating public sex acts. After being caught playing man and wife, reported one prisoner, the captain whipped me about 45 licks and then made me kiss the other fellow's tail. Calling other prisoners to gather around, Grace had one Negro hold a light while he made me drag my tongue right through the hole. Now, don't that taste good, you... Man, this is in quotes. It's in quotes. Now, they do sanitize it, but man, I cannot sanitize this. I've got to read this. Let me see if I can get this, because it's in quotes. They got it in quotes, man. That's where, man, don't you be saying, I'm going to jump down your... Well, I did my research. Huntsville, Alabama, we've been talking about that for over a decade, sir. In quotes, it says, now, don't that taste good, you goddamn motherfucking son of a bitch? And I would say, yes, sir, Captain. That's footnote 173. The book Texas Tough, The Rise of America's Prison Empire, from the chapter 3, Worse Than Slavery. And cherry on top, what you've been doing for 16 years, talking about content like this. We had Dr. Robert Perkinson on the air, and because I have not been no lazy Negro, and yes, I have done my research, I read that passage back to Robert Perkinson and got him to respond on the air in the archives, summertime, June 2010. That's what I've been doing 16 years. Context of White Supremacy. You done your research? Anyway, but that's what I mean. It ain't no volumes. I'm sure they had black females. I'm sure. I know they arrest black females. I've written about Sandra Bland, but if this is what you got, volumes of this, decades of this, that should be stated explicitly. One, it's evidence-based. It's not like we make it up nonsense. People are just going in. I told you, this was all footnoted. It's well documented. If that is the case, speak on evidence. That would give us an accurate understanding of white supremacy racism. No, I'm not saying you need to ignore black females who were lynched. No, I'm not saying you need to ignore black females who were arrested or even killed by police, although I have seen data that black females, I already know, are not killed at the same rate by police as black males, but also they are given more leniency. Like, I literally have seen data that they are allowed to talk back, sass mouth white officers more so than black males without violent retribution, which I'm not saying that should be the case. I'm just saying there is a difference in how racists treat black males, victims of racism, and how they treat black females. Really, there's a difference in how racists treat black males and how they treat all other victims of racism. Victims, yep, we all are, but there's a substantial difference between Leroy and the other victims of racism, just based on fact. Anyway, so Reverend Oliver was not pleased. I guess that I questioned, or one, that I read the passage where some of the very black people in Waco said we were ignorant about racism, which, again, I don't think that's anything to be ashamed about. I'm ignorant about racism, and that's something that I've heard before. I wish we could be more honest than just saying, hey, we're ignorant about racism. We didn't really understand this the way that we thought we could. Hey, Neely Fuller Jr. had to admit that. I don't see no problem there, but whatever. He was not, I guess, pleased about that. He was not pleased about me, my emphasis on Black Misandry, even though it is very much based in evidence. And like I said, I think some of it was also, you gonna say ass mouth my white friend? I came back to ask about the religion of white supremacy racism, which for me was massively important for the whole dialogue. Dr. Davis, racist suspect, is a theology professor. And then so much of the book, God of the Whirlwind, so much of the book is talking in biblical terms about so-called retribution, whatever that means. And then this tornado that happened in 1953. I have to make sure that I get on the record. I think I stated it yesterday while Dr. Davis was there, but that is the biggest crock of malarkey. And the worthlessness of black culture. Now, not all black people in Waco believed this. There were black people in the book who did not take this view, but it seemed like there were a number of black people who did think this way, that Jesse Washington was lynched in 1916, and that God gave white people their comeuppance by having this tornado strike Waco in 1953 that was super destructive, killed people, damaged buildings, and all of that. And it was folklore that the tornado took the exact path of the lynch mob when they killed and castrated all the rest of it with Jesse Washington in 1916. The nonsense of all of this, and I guess folk tales and all of that mythology is important, and blah, blah, blah. The nonsense of all of this, the lynching, I just said, just the mathematics, same thing I've been saying the whole time. Evidence, logic, science, the math of this again, the lynching, 1916, the tornado, 1953. I suspect some of those people who were involved in the lynching had died in the almost 40 years. I mean, it's not like we had cutting edge medical technology at that time or now, but I suspect a good number of those folks might not have been with us anymore. And then I asked Dr. Davis yesterday, I said, did any black people die in this tornado? Said, yeah, I think so. Yeah. How in the world is an event retribution? I wouldn't care if they got GPS coordinates. This is the route that the racist whites, they snatched old Jesse Washington from the prison and drug him down the street. This is where they went, castrated him right here. This is where they lynched him. This is where he was buried. And then the storm, it took that exact path. It did not deviate 1 centimeter. Even if that were the case, I do not care. Black people died in this event. Like, what? How is that retribution? It would have to be retribution like something happened where you all stuffed all of the niggers in this part of town, and it turns out that they got like an oil deposit on the land, and they all had the mineral rights, and they all owned the property, and they all came up and became billionaires. They all got stadiums like Jerry Jones in Texas, and they made Negro colleges and all the rest of it, and got agricultural farms set up and all kinds of like, that is retribution. Like, wow. You all got, there you go. Like, y'all tried to mess over the black people, boom, 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 and no white people got any of that. Would be retribution. A storm where black people died, and then a lot of other black people could have been injured, could have also been killed, lost property, all the rest. How is that? And a storm that happens almost 40 years later? Haints, that is the type of, that worthy of great pity. That is the exact sort of slave culture that I would expect, one, from a lot of people who are illiterate and denied quality education, where all they are allowed to do is go to church. So all you can do is grope and scrap and scratch for something out of the Bible to try to make sense of the terrorism that we're in. We're terrorized and abused all the time, and nothing is done about it. Well, there you go. White people, you got yours. The storm came, and thankfully it didn't kill too many of us. That doesn't even make sense. Like I said, I was reminded of Bill Russell repeatedly. We read Second Wind, where he said they would sit around and talk about the haints and hauntings in Louisiana, right next door to Texas. Not that much of a difference in how white people run the plantation in either environment. And I said then, like, dang, Bill Russell, he was talking about things that were happening in like 1936, mid 1930s. Like, we are not that far removed from the Haints, where racists have done a spectacular job keeping us uninformed about everything. We do not talk about or study white supremacy racism, not to any serious, accurate level. Even today, 2025, we are not. And then worse, we think we're really smart about racism, even though it's obvious we're not. But we, non-white people, think we're so smart about racism, have not studied anything at all, and then we'll be ready to get in conflict with other non-white people about nothing, really. Spectacular, embarrassing on 1,000 levels. But that religion of white supremacy, where white people have deliberately encouraged us to not be scientific and logical, to just be emotional, irrational, and really that religion of white supremacy, that's a big part of not all white people is racist. Certainly Jesus can't be racist, so that's one right there we can start with. But that, I mean, in so many ways, the forgiving white people, because we don't forgive Leroy, but forgiving white people for practicing white supremacy racism, so much of it. Like I said, it struck me in the book when they talked about the Negro institutions that white people allowed black people to have in Waco, the church. That was about it. Now, you heard sororities and fraternities. They mentioned the AKAs. They mentioned Negro barbershops. They mentioned Negro beauty salons. They mentioned Negro morticians. They mentioned even a Negro school. Dilapidated and bad resources, of course, but they mentioned a Negro school. Outside of that, it wasn't that. They didn't mention no black construction company. They didn't mention no black hotels in Waco. They didn't mention no black banks in Waco. Maybe they had these, but none of that was mentioned in the book. And I'm not surprised about that, because white people, we're not going to allow you to have no black banks. We're not going to allow you to have no Negro construction company. We're not going to allow you to have no black hotel. You can have your little Negro juke joint. You can have that. You know, you can get out on the corner and sell some reefer. You can do Negro barbershop, because we don't want to cut no Negro hair. But outside that, we're not going to allow you to do nothing else. That ended up being dominant influence on how we think and behave. And even the religious practices. It's not like you're going to have a church that's about the science of counter-racism. I said, hey, Dr. King, he would still be with us if that were the case. You can have your church, but provided you preaching about the correct things, and we'll come and monitor and make sure that that's the case. Or we'll pay spies to come and let us know what you're preaching about and make sure you're doing the correct thing. Burn your church down if it's not operating correctly. Religion of white supremacy racism. That, when I asked that question, that was one, Dr. Davis, so tacky and trifling. One, Reverend Oliver interrupted to answer that question. I cannot say enough. There were so many different, I would say, forms of compensatory conversation control. I muted Reverend Oliver so that he could not interrupt and do all that. Man, when you are questioning a white person, do not let non-white people interrupt and answer for them. Like, man, if you're questioning a white person, make sure you yourself don't help them with the answer and help your white friend out and get into the conclusion. And then if it's other non-white people around, make sure, just let them know. You can share your views or what have you later on. And sometimes I can't even say that because I'm not interested in hearing Leroy's view about this question. I wanted to hear what this white man had to say. I don't care what you have to say, Leroy. Hush. I try not to say it that rude and nasty, but I mean, frequently that is the case. Like with that question about the religion of white supremacy, I didn't care what Reverend Oliver had to say. Reverend Oliver. I didn't care what he had to say on that question. His views are valid, but I didn't ask him that question. I had already went to him. I needed to hear what this white man, what are you going to say about this? And I don't want you to help him answer. I don't want you to butt in and answer for him like Jesus Christ. Mute compensatory conversation control, especially important if it's mixed setting, meaning white people and non-white people present. Like, make it clear This question is for the racist suspect. If you are not white, I'm not talking to you, and do not interrupt. That is discourteous and rude. And we do a lot of that. We are so discourteous, interrupting and talking over black people. Black person trying to ask a question to a white person. I'm going to interrupt. Shut up, nigger. I'm going to answer for you. Black person trying to talk and give their, shut up, nigger. You don't do that. Jesus Christ. Maybe that could be one right there. Do not, Fuller talked about that, right? That's why Dr. Welsing said, I don't do no panels, even with all non-white people. You're not going to be interrupting and shouting over Dr. Welsing. Coon Welsing, you don't know what you're talking about. Let me get in here. I'd rather talk by myself. Right on, Dr. Welsing. Me too. I'd rather talk, have to leap over and shout over Leroy and Lakeisha. Just quiet down. But Dr. Davis, and I'm sure that's one that he would have been, whoo, please, Reverend Oliver, go on, get this one. Dr. Davis, you in theology, you got to know about the use of religion, justifying slavery and all of the missionaries. You got to know. To get black people ended up sounding like this, forgiving white people. And not all white people is racist. Come on, man. And conveniently, Dr. Davis, I think he left without saying a word. He didn't give us no heads up. I got to go. I got children to take care of. They got the Netflix special on. I watched baseball. We almost headed to the playoffs, man. He didn't say none of that. Left us with Reverend Oliver. Man, it does not get any better than tacky and trifling. I read the book. It's not like I'm on here talking nonsense. I'm reading direct quotes from the book. Asking him questions, engaged, not being rude, nasty, surly. Same thing I said with Reverend Oliver. I'm not being rude and nasty to your white friend. I'm asking serious questions about the text. Any hoodles. Let's see. And even that dynamic, we've had that on air a number of times where there has been a white guest and a non-white, or white person, non-white person on the program at the same time, where I've been speaking directly to a white person, ask them a question, and the non-white person got upset. And it would be the same dynamic. I didn't curse the white person out. I'm thinking specifically, we had Millie L. McGee. She's a black female, and she wrote a book and documentary film about J. Edgar Hoover having a non-white parent and a white parent that he might have been, quote unquote, passing to be accepted as a white person, and talking about the racism against she and her family, that they might have been related to him because he had that non-white parent. So she wrote a whole book and documentary film about all this. We had her as a guest on the program in 2009. So she invites Wes Swearingen as a guest on the program. He was a former FBI agent classified as white. Wes Swearingen, familiar with J. Edgar Hoover, obviously. He worked during that time period, 1960s. And he wrote a book about his time in the FBI and their COINTELPRO operation to target black people. So he came on with her because she spoke with him about J. Edgar Hoover. Do you think this is correct? And then his racist treatment of black people, was that motivated because he was actually passing and self-hatred, blah, blah, blah. So Wes Swearingen comes on the program, and I'm asking him questions about the COINTELPRO operation, and just, he is a white man, so racist suspect. And oh my goodness, like, we got to a point where I'm questioning, and she said, whoa, wait a minute now, Gus T. I didn't know you were going to be on here and questioning, Wes, all aggressive. This is my white friend. You're on here questioning him, all tough and everything. My goodness, I didn't know you were going to be on and do all. Victims guaranteed, qualified, certainly, but I can only say again, I don't have white friends. There should be, and I don't curse on. I stand by my record. We've had tons of white people on the broadcast over the years. I'm not on here cursing out white people and calling them names and crackers. None of that. I ask questions. I don't interrupt and talk over white people or non-white people when they're guests on the program. I don't do any of that. I use my mute button, let them talk, answer the questions that I am trying to listen, learn, see what they're going to say, evaluate their responses and such. But I've seen that a number of times, both in person and on this broadcast. That's another reason why I'm not a fan of having multiple guests on the program, especially if it's going to be a white person with non-white people. Like, oh man, they are going to be defending that white person so hard. I'd even forgot we had a white woman on the program, and she was a white woman in a tragic arrangement, and her black boyfriend was also present. He hopped on the line as well. Man, we had the boyfriend's brother got upset. You've been rude to that white woman and won't let her answer, and oh boy, I'll get you the name calling. Think, man, our conditioning has been conditioned. This is back in the archives as well, but I've seen this so many times where if you have a white person, non-white people, those non-white people will get angry, mad, defending that white person and or white people in general. Get angry. I cannot believe how nasty, and this white person, gave their time to come in and talk, and you gonna be nasty and rude. Who do you and what do you mean racist, suspect, and other? Be prepared for all of that. If you ever are questioning white people publicly, or even, if it's in a Zoom format, online, something of that nature, if there are non-white people present, be prepared for that. Stay focused on, I'm questioning this white person. I'd like to get their response, and then you can deal with all the non-white people, down the road, if ever. Just stay focused on the question and making sure that you do actually get a response, and don't let them pass that off. Well, I think these non-white people are more qualified. Let's make sure that they have agency. No. We get to that. I need you to answer this question because you're white, and I'm very important. Hey, we're in a system of white supremacy. You're in charge. Let's get your response. Hiding, jumping out of the way, and all that nonsense. Let me make sure. Yeah, I'm not a fan of black. I told you, I read in the book where they mentioned Maya Angelou saying black people on a Saturday night having lots of fun. And we read her biographies. We didn't read the entire series, but we read several this year and even previously. On the quote from her book where she says, it's Saturday night, I'm black, and I'm dangerous, which is interesting because in the book, the black person says that Maya Angelou talked about black people in Waco, you can have a lot of fun on a Saturday night. The quote that I'm sure Maya Angelou, she wrote a number of other books and poetry and all that, so she might have many quotes about Saturday night and black people. That might be the case. I will say, my observation and lived experience, black people generally do not demonstrate how constructive Negro culture is on Saturday evenings. That's just been my experience. And you can extend that to early Sunday morning. That is no time to highlight the constructive value of Negro culture. The quote that I remember from Dr. Angelo was, Saturday night, I'm black and I'm dangerous. Not black and codified, not black and scientific, not even Negro and safe. Black and I'm dangerous. Any hoodles. Anything else? I did think it was constructive, the broadcast yesterday, even for some of the points that I'm illustrating right now, and the value of compensatory conversation control, the fact that even highlighting Black Misandry is met with so much resistance, frequently resistance even from other people classified as black, even other black males. You are not supposed to be pointing this out. I've had this happen repeatedly over the years, and I think even Dr. Curry has talked about how he, author of The Man Not, Race, Class, Genre, and the Dilemmas of Black Manhood, I think he and others who talk about Black Misandry have said that other black males will be right there, and what are you doing and erasing out black sisters, and no count Leroy, and you got to talk about black male privilege and all this other foolishness that is not evidence based, but it's very common. It's why I say, hey, I am not excited about talking to non-white people, period. When people say, Gus T, old privileged black male out there kicking for black male, does it sound like I'm in love with black males? Which one specifically? Do black males sound like they are in love with Gus T? Which one specifically? Reverend Oliver, when him saying, ready to jump down your throat. That sound like he, love Gus T. Drake, Kendrick Lamar, that's Negro love, black males loving one another. Come on. That has been my experience. I would not, when bringing up the significance, import of Black Misandry and the deliberate targeting of black males for racist violence, I have even found sometimes black males are not receptive to this, much less anybody else. So, and I interpret that is a part of our conditioning, because many of us, when presented with truthful, accurate information about racism, white supremacy, our conditioning is, you can get in trouble. You're not supposed to be talking about that. We don't talk about Jesse Washington. You better not talk about that. That's how we've been conditioned. I say all the time, many black people have been killed just for talking about racism, white supremacy. Steve Biko, South Africa. To my knowledge, he didn't pick up a gun. He was not in Mkontwe way. He talked about racism, white supremacy, and black people being killed. Old privileged black male died mysteriously in prison. I didn't see any, haven't read anything where he had an army, AK-47 stashed away, out bombing white Africana. I haven't seen any of that. Just talking about racism, that was enough. We got to get our nigger knocker. We gonna go upside your privileged black skull, Steve Biko. They reopened the investigation in his murder just this month, I think. No statute of limitations on murder, methinks. But yeah, you can die, be killed just for talking about racism, not getting a gun and all that. So at minimum, take it serious and be accurate. But yes, I do think that's a part of our training to don't talk about racism. They might Steve Biko you. Don't talk about racism. They might Dr. King you. Don't talk about racism. They might Malcolm X you. Ooh, you old privileged black dude. See that you ain't mentioned no black female. Yeah. But don't talk about racism. They'll Angela Davis you. I guess she's still with us, but Anyway, don't talk about racism. We got that message, and you will get in trouble with white people. You can get in trouble with white people. Facts. And apparently, don't talk about Black Misandry either. I guess you get in trouble with white people for bringing that up too. Dr. Curry says it's not like they get excited. You want to talk about how we make a habit of mistreating Leroy. Like, what? What? Maybe so. I humbly, because I see lots of white-sponsored, white-endorsed, where they will allow you to talk about feminism and sexism, black feminism, black sexism, black queer, black LGBTQ. I see lots of that all the time. Very prominent. Lots of money, funding. We'll make that real prominent. How we mistreat Leroy. Why all these lynchings are targeting thousands of black males. I could be in error. I think that is a massively important component of white supremacy racism to obscure it. Dr. Davis used that term explicitly yesterday. I've been using it for years. Moo. Minimize, obfuscate, and omit. White people deliberately minimize, obfuscate, and omit white supremacy racism in its myriad of forms, and specifically they minimize, obfuscate, and omit a lot of their deliberate targeting of black males specifically. We don't want to talk about that at all. Oh, no. Let's talk about how we don't do right by the black LGBTQ people. Yeah, we mess over the black queer people. Yeah. Let's do that. Come on, man. They ain't lynched no thousands of black queer people. I ain't seen no data on that at all. At all. Anyway, but that, go back in the archives. You check out Dr. Davis and Reverend Oliver, his commentary on the broadcast yesterday. Again, folks who heard it, you can, evaluate. Like I said, I do not care if you think Gus T is patient with other victims of racism. I think my patience was on display yesterday. I didn't name call Reverend Oliver. I was still courteous. I let him speak. I didn't interrupt him. I didn't call him any names. I didn't respond with hostility to any of his responses and or questions. Thanked him for his time and visiting us on the program. I did mute him. Now, if you want to say this discourteous or what, but I mute all kinds of it. He was not the invited guest. Dr. Davis, when he said that he was going to ask him to see if he'd be willing to participate, no problem. That's fine, but I did not reach out to Reverend Oliver to join us. I reached out to Dr. Davis. Fine, no problem. Glad to have Reverend Oliver, and we'll get to him, but that is not the person that I was seeking out to have on this broadcast. I think it was super patient, and more than anything, compensatory conversation control. Sometimes the best course is minimize contact. We're just not going to communicate. That's the best course. Like we have very divergent views on this subject matter. You have white friends. Really, in some instances, that might end the conversation, at least for me. Oh, you have white friends? Oh, okay. Already know not all white people are racist, and for some people that's a non-starter. For some victims, because of our conditioning, that's a non-starter. It's going to be conflict immediately. You automatically don't know what you're talking about because it just cannot be that not all white people are racist. Or it's got to be that not all white people are racist. So if you don't have that view, then poo on you. That is very common courtesy of white people. Any hoodles, but sometimes that is the best course. I do not feel that I have to talk to non-white people. I don't think we have to converse. Sometimes it's just being quiet. We're not having conflict. We're not arguing, anything of that nature. If they have a question about something, answer. If they need help with something, supply it if you can. But the best course is we do not need to chit-chat, go back and forth, yum about this, that, and the other, because we do not have agreement. We have divergent views about this, and we're not going to change our opinion, so yeah, no problem. Keep it moving. Any hoodles, we should be here on Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for neutralizing workplace racism. And then Friday, Catherine Massey Book Club, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Compensatory call in 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll catch up on things that are new. I'd almost forgotten. I asked Reverend Oliver, because he said in the book that black people make jokes about white people. I said, wow, what jokes have you made about white people? I asked him that during the conversation. And he said that he joked about Charlie Kirk and his death. Now, having had a day to think about that, I will say, hey, that is because he said he thinks Charlie Kirk is racist and didn't care about black people, and so, I've been ridiculing Charlie Kirk. Well, I did think, though, that is a little different than just blanket jokes about white people. Because white people do lots of blanket jokes. I mean, they do individual jokes about Barack Obama and, whoever else, other black people, certainly. Kamala Harris, certainly. But they do lots, thousands, tens of thousands of jokes that are about black people in total. I should have prodded a little bit like, let's hear a joke about white people in total, not Charlie Kirk. Because I think it's a lot of other people that have been, Charlie Kirk isn't cool and, whatever, polarizing type figure, What are some jokes about white people just in general? Because I do not hear black people. If you called me on the carpet right now, a joke about white people, they can't dance? To whatever degree you think that's a joke? And then they can't cook? Again, to whatever degree you think that's a joke. I can remember we talked about that Dr. Layla Africa, Nutricide. He was talking about white people not being able to cook and they don't season their food and blah, blah, blah. Well, they're in control of all the food, and they can starve Devontae Hart, so there's that. That's what I'm saying, though. Like, if you called me like the white people can't dance, the white people can't jump, do they say that still? They made the Woody Harrelson, they had that old movie, old Wesley Snipes, remember that one? Oldie but goodie. other than that, like, I can't really think of, a joke about white people. They can't cook, so they make our mothers and sisters and daughters make them come and cook all the food for them, and then rape them while they're there and don't pay them correctly. And then make niggers grow the food for them and don't pay them correctly either. Get non-white people to pick the food for them and pick the food and then threaten to deport them. They can't dance, but they still listen to Drake and K-Dot talk about niggers. I don't know. I don't. Y'all would have to tell me, if you're around black people who joke about white people, please write in and tell me, what do they say? If you joke about white people, what do you say? In what context? Do you tell these jokes about white people like just around your offspring? Your care mate? Your relatives? You all, y'all are getting ready for so-called holidays, Thanksgiving meal and Christmas and all that. You think of your batch of jokes, boy, I got about 15 of them. Boy, I'm going to be roasting whitey this year. They ain't even going to be really? That's not my experience at all. I couldn't even, if you demanded, like, can you name a black person that you've been around who told some really good jokes about white people? You'd have to give me some time. Can I get back to you on that? I'm gonna have to think, because no one is coming to mind, and I mean no one. Jokes about black people, all there. How many do you need? 20, 50, 100? How many do you need? Jokes about white people? Can I get back to you? Give me a little while to think on it, and I'll see it. And let me see if I can think of one black person who joked about white people. Let me see if I can think of one black person. I worked at a Negro comedy club. I don't remember any of them joking about white people either. Did I miss Dave Chappelle? Does he have jokes about white people? Kevin Hart? He got jokes about white people? I missed. Chris Rock, he got jokes about white people? It's black people and niggers. That's what I remember. I don't remember. He got jokes about white people? What are the jokes about white people? I'm behind on my Netflix. And then I have the audacity to get attitude and tell folks, look here, I don't care what you watched on YouTube, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon. I don't care. Tubi. Do not be sending me no nonsense that you watched on screens and such. So I guess if I didn't have such an ignorant stance, maybe people would have shared with me some of the best Negro jesters. And, man, you done messed out Leslie Jones, boy. She done roasted them white people, boy. Paul Mooney, boy, he done roasted them white people, man. Maybe so. But, yeah, I've heard Paul Mooney. These folks are generally joking about black people. Black people. Black people born in the States, not the pretend black people. Black people born right here. Any hoodles. As I said, this broadcast wasn't even planned, so hopefully said some things that'll at least get folks to think. They can go back, listen to the broadcast from yesterday, see if it was if I have been accurate to what transpired on the broadcast. If you all have any tips having discussions about white supremacy, racism that are going to be accurate, fact-based about the system of white supremacy, racism when you're in mixed company, white people and non-white people present. If you have any suggestions for dealing with that sort of environment, let us know. Tips to making sure that the non-white people don't get hostile. Tips for dealing with the non-white people once they get hostile. My strategy is use your mute button if this is a Zoom type of a thing. Like, quiet down, Leroy. Quiet down, Lakeisha. We'll get to all that later. Quiet down. Quiet down. But if you have any tips, because you can't necessarily mute folks if you're in person, group setting and such. So if you have any tips, let us know. I say being patient is a great one. I'm not here to argue and fuss with Leroy. is a great one. I try to keep that in mind myself. I'm not here to argue and fuss with Leroy. Trying to learn from these racists. I try and keep that in mind as often as possible. Keeps it from, taking it personal or getting upset about something. What did you say, Reverend Oliver? Victims guarantee qualified that as well, that I'm not really looking for a consensus. It doesn't matter seemingly that all of the non-white people are in unison, with the exception of Gus T, that yes, we think not all white people are racist. Well, wait a minute. We've come to a consensus on this, Gus T. We don't need your input. Okay, no problem. I don't argue with non-white people about that or anything else. I expect there to be massive disagreement, especially with regards to my views on the system of white supremacy, even if it's other non-white people who say that they are counter-racists. And I dig Neely Fuller Jr. and Dr. Welsing. Reverend Oliver, he said, yeah, I heard Dr. Welsing. Watched some videos. He didn't say he read her book. See. He didn't say he read her book. He said, I've seen some videos, which may have even been C.O.W.S content with Dr. Welsing. He said, I've seen some of her videos. She seems to have, accurate views and what have you on what this problem is. Well, I agree as well. And one of the big things Dr. Welsing said, white genetic annihilation, but minimizing conflict. And I think she did an exemplary job of walking it better than she talked it. She talked it brilliantly, but I mean, you can see her have conversation with black people, non-white people who sometimes often didn't agree with her. And you don't know what you talk about, Dr. Welsing, and your theories are goofy. And I came in and not all white people are racist. And you're just talking crazy. White people aren't jealous of us because we got that. You even say something. Are you a real doctor? You one of them diploma mill doctors? That type of thing. She didn't get hostile. She didn't get upset. Calm, patient. Even her times on the cows. Calm, patient, not nasty, courteous, not interrupting. Grandmotherly, I might say. I mean, that is a compliment, Any hoodles, but definitely go back in the archives for the broadcast yesterday. If you missed it, check it out, see what you think. The Black Misandry component, I think, super important. You can go back and hear Dr. Curry's visits with us, our discussions on Black Misandry. Heck, you can even go back and hear Robert Perkinson, Texas Tough. I read that passage about sniffing the bat, convict leasing system, all these black males, and how that ended up setting structure for the prison structure in the U.S. Go back and check out that broadcast. I shared it online earlier today. Robert Perkinson is his name. Maybe if you have some connection with Texas, you should read that book too. Again, I say try not to spend a whole lot of money on these white people's books. You can get used copies and all that for like a penny, sometimes $1. Used bookstores are great. You can get hardback copies for like 50 cents and all that good stuff. White people should not be making money for writing about white supremacy, racism, profiting really from practicing racism. Like, come on. Let's see. Make sure we didn't miss out anyone. As I said, unplanned, impromptu broadcast. *61. Anyone have thought to share before we get ready to wrap it up? You heard the broadcast from yesterday, or thoughts from what was discussed. Some of the main talking points from today. The Haints, can't say it enough, man. That I'm so glad we read Bill Russell's book, Second Win, in the Archives Catherine Massey Book Club. But man, we are not that far removed from the Haints. Not being logical, it is, I don't know, ghosts, old wives' tales, as they say, goblins, not logic. Haints, not evidence. Haints. The great Bill Russell, and I think he spelled it Haints. Haints. I said, wow, these were people that he said his own testimony were not literate. He talked about when they transitioned from Louisiana to California, Bay Area, And he was able to go to the library and start reading and reading nonfiction. And that became his greatest joy. Like, oh my goodness. Wow. And reading history and reading about racism. But it had totally changed his brain computer, Bill Russell said. And he contrasted, saying, man, my parents, they weren't even allowed to read, to be educated. You know, they illiterate. Wow, just, it's not by accident. That is deliberate system of white supremacy racism. In fact, they could have got their hands on Bill Russell. You're not supposed to be reading and writing books either, much less writing books about racism. That ain't supposed to be happening at all. Haints, H-A-I-N-T-S, if memory serves, from Second Wind, the great Bill Russell, victim of white supremacy racism. I guess privileged black male also, the great Bill Russell. Any hoodles. I didn't see any hands from folks, so I'll assume they're satisfied and or they weren't even aware that we were going to be doing our surprise broadcast for the day. So they'll catch this in the archives. You can drop an email untiljustice@gmail.com. Untiljustice@gmail.com. If you have a thought broadcast from yesterday, as I said, if you have tips on discussing white supremacy racism in mixed company where you have white people and non-white people present, things to do to, what shall I say, minimize conflict with non-white people, the tendency for non-white people to defend suspected racists or to answer for them, or even to begin to dominate the conversation. There was some of that yesterday because I thought Reverend Oliver, some of his responses, he even said, I'm filibustering here a little bit, and I was thinking, yeah, like you were talking a lot. I really, got my answer. I'm ready to get back to the white person. But anyway, folks have tips about that. Grand. Let us know ways that we can make improvements in having discussions, having the most constructive discussions possible when talking about white supremacy racism publicly. That's it. Invest if you think the cows is constructive. Hit the blog racism-notes.blogspot.com. racism-notes.blogspot.com. PayPal button in the top right corner. Beneath the button, you'll see the links for PayPal, Cash App, and Venmo. Enormous gratitude to all the folks who've invested, kept us on the air for 16 plus years so that we can speak with Dr. Robert Perkinson, Dr. Tyler B. Davis, Dr. Curry, Dr. Welsing in there 31 times as well, and all the other work that we've done. Hopefully accurate more often than not. Hopefully we have aided some non-white people throughout the known universe get a slightly better understanding of what it means to be white, what white supremacy is, how it works, things that non-white people can and should be doing to solve this problem immediately. I cannot say enough. Minimizing conflict with non-white people high on the list. The problem is not Reverend Oliver or any other black person, what they think, what they don't think. The problem is not black people who have white friends. The problem, racist man, racist woman, racist child, people classified as white. That is the problem. And that's capital T, the capital P problem. Sobriety would be best under conditions of white supremacy. We need high-functioning brain computers to solve our problems, suss out what white people are doing, and solutions to that problem. Never mind. We will need high-level thinking logic, not hints. High-level thinking and logic. High-level thinking and logic. I don't think Mad Dog 2020 is going to get us there. Creator, remind us to stop saying not all white people are racist. remind us to stop name-calling people classified as black. Stop gossiping. Stop producing throwaway offspring to be raped by Mary Kay Letourneau or drowned by Susan Smith or other white women. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cows signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed.
I'm a victim, brother.
Problem. You're a victim.
Yeah. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my condition. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.